Before we get to episode 154, I'd like to ask for a small favor. If you're going to be doing any shopping at all this holiday season at Amazon.com, I would really appreciate it if you used my link, iCantCU.com/Amazon. That'll take you to the Amazon.com homepage. Shop for whatever you need, check out. You don't pay anything more, but I do earn a small commission, and I really would appreciate it. Again, that's iCantCU.com/Amazon. Thank you so much for your support.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the I Can't See You podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 154 of the iCantCU podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for this episode, and as always, I've got a couple of things to talk about. And since it's football season, we're going to start off with that. I won this past weekend in the All-Blind Fantasy Football League, but I'm still in third. I'm behind Pug Posse. We have the same record, but he has way more points than I do. And Pug Posse's in second. And I'm behind the first place perennial champ, Montreal Beavers. That's right. The guy from Canada, the perennial champ, Nick, is still in first place, even though I beat him this week. And I did find out something very interesting. We share the same birthday. Now, as Frank pointed out to me, he's a little bit older by 5 years. But it is very cool that we share a birthday. I thought that was very interesting. I don't know that he knows it yet, but he will know on Sunday when it's our birthday, November 21st. Oh, and so if you didn't get me anything, there's still plenty of time, especially if you have Amazon Prime. Of course, if you didn't get me anything but don't really want to buy me something materialistic, you can always go to supportkeystonechapter.org and make a donation. Any amount would be great. I appreciate that. That is supportkeystonechapter.org. And I appreciate that so much. While we're talking about fantasy sports and talking about Canada, Nick is not in first place in the hockey league, which I find hysterical. And I don't know that he's ever... if he's ever won. And I think the league is only a couple years old. But I did win there as well. And I am in first place. So I don't have the most points. In fact, I think I'm fourth in points. And I'm going to have a tough week this week. So I'm playing the eighth place team, but all my guys seem to be playing on the same day. So I can't get everybody in. And so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I am leading now as of this recording, which is Thursday afternoon. So the games go Monday to Sunday. So we've got 3 games in and 4 days to go. So I am leading, but let's see what happens. And again, I just want to win, so I stay undefeated there. Another thing that I want to move on to, yesterday, the 17th, was Ziggy's birthday. And if you didn't get him anything, you can still go to supportkeystonechapter.org and you can make a donation. I do have, if you follow me or friends with me on Facebook, I do have a couple of funny pictures there. We put a birthday hat on him, and he stayed relatively calm. It's amazing what a carrot will do for him to concentrate and look right at the camera. And there's also another picture of him with some icing on his nose. Liz made him just like we did for Zamboni back, so many years ago, 23, 24 years ago, when Zamboni was one, Liz made him a dog-specific cake. It has normal ingredients, wheat flour and vanilla extract and an egg and all sorts of other things, but it's just in different amounts. Bananas, and Ziggy loves bananas. Zamboni did as well. So instead of making a cake, she made cupcakes. And I tried it, and the icing was just awful. The icing was a no-fat cream cheese, vanilla extract, honey. I think there was one, and cinnamon. It smelled great, but it just didn't taste good. It just, I guess the quantities of whatever was in there was just wrong. The icing was not good. The cake itself was okay. I took a couple of bites and then gave the rest of mine to Ziggy and I ate one uniced because I just, the icing, I licked the knife that Liz made the icing with, and it was just, that she, scraped the mixing bowl with. And I was just not a fan, but it's from Three Dogs Bakery. And Ziggy loved it. And again, he eats just about anything. And I was thinking as I was putting the picture up of Ziggy with his birthday hat on and how intently he's staring at the carrot that Liz was holding while I took the picture. And I thought of that saying, carrot or stick. And I think he'd stare just as intently if I had a stick. Not that I was going to hit him with it, but he'd get to chew it and probably eat it. So that was yesterday, and that was a lot of fun. So it was nice to see everybody's pictures on the Shiloh and Maisie. They are his parents. There's a Facebook group, Shiloh and Maisie 2020 Litter. And Ziggy has 10 brothers and sisters. He is one of 11. And it's just awesome to see the different pictures. And in fact, one of the folks in there is doing a calendar for us. So since there's 11 of the dogs, of the puppies, one will go for the mother. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, the father's been dead for quite a while. They used frozen sperm to get Maisie pregnant and have Ziggy and all of his litter mates. But a lot of fun yesterday with Ziggy, and I let him get away with a little more than I usually let him get away with. And believe me, I let him get away with a lot. So yesterday he pretty much had free range. I mean, if he wanted to take the car out for a spin, I would have let him. And I would have gone probably. So, because I haven't left the house since I got home from Harrisburg, and that is the main topic for today. This past weekend, actually from last Thursday to Sunday, was the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania State Convention, and as I mentioned, it was in Harrisburg. And it was kind of funny. I was taking the train out there from 30th Street Station in Philadelphia, and there was a bunch of us going on the 11 o'clock train. Oh my gosh, it was the 11th hour of the 11th month of the 11th day. We took the train. And some of the folks from the Keystone chapter that went, most of them were on this train. It was Lisa, myself, Esther, and her daughter, Stacy, and her daughter, and a couple other folks. I know I'm forgetting someone. But we all took the same train. Now, Esther and Stacy had never taken the train on their own since becoming blind. And they were, I don't want to say nervous, but, they wanted to make sure they were there in time and everything was done. And even Lisa, so there was this little group text going back and forth with all of us, and everybody saying, we're going to leave at this time to get there. And I'm thinking, okay, if the train's at 11, I figured I was good to leave my house by 10. I figured that would be great. And, all of a sudden at like 9:05, I'm getting texts that they're leaving for the train station. And most of them live a lot closer to the station than I do. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're leaving so early. So instead of leaving at 10, I ordered the Uber at around 9:45, maybe 20 of 10, something like that. And of course I got there and nobody else was there. No one else was there. I was the first one of our group. And, I'm standing there and I said to the guy, I went to the information desk because I didn't know what track the train was going to be leaving on. And I went to the desk and I said, I just want to know the 6:43, I think it was, to Harrisburg, where was that leaving from? Oh, I'll get somebody to help you. And they call the guy radios ahead to, for one of the red caps to come. They call people that need assistance VIPs. And I think it's funny. So a guy comes over to me, and I didn't catch his name. It was not Mortimer, I don't think. He was the guy that was very helpful when I went to New York for the fantasy football draft back in September. So he, as we're walking over, I'm talking to him. I said, there's a whole bunch of us. I guess they're all here already. And he's like, I haven't seen anyone. I don't know what you're talking about, basically. And I said, oh, maybe I'm the first one. So I go, and he says, okay, well, there's some chairs over here. I said, no, I'd prefer to stand. And, I find a spot near the stairs where you go down to the train, and I'm just waiting. I go on my phone. I, of course, take the obligatory selfie in 30th Street Station, which, I just love the looks of that station. It's just the architecture and everything about it I love. So I always take a picture there. And, I posted that along with a picture of Ziggy and I right before I left. And, I'm standing there waiting, and then all of a sudden I get a call from one person, and then I get a call from another person, and Stacy, who has a little girl named Alana, Alana comes over to me. She's 6, and she says hello, and I talked to her for a couple minutes, and she goes back and sits down with her mom, and I'm just standing there, and then then Lisa comes over, then Esther gets there, and then it's time to go down. Then they take us all down, and everybody's worried about their luggage, because I kept mine with me because he didn't ask me if I wanted to put it on a cart. I was happy dragging it along. And I had probably the world's ugliest suitcase, which we bought back when Jacob was going to Japan, and when he was in high school. He spent a couple of weeks in Japan on a school trip after school had ended. Here they were still in school in Japan, so we got to stay with the Japanese family and so forth and so on. But it is the ugliest suitcase. I mean, it's got these flowers. I think it's like a brownish color. I don't know what color the print is on there. I don't know if it's blue or black. It's dark. Again, I can't really see, so I don't know. But the one cool thing about it is when you're in the airport and the luggage starts coming up and you see a dark colored suitcase, whether it be brown or blue or black, it's hard to tell if it's yours or not. When this one comes out, it's yours because nobody else has one because it's so ugly. But it was a bigger bag than I was planning on taking because the bag I wanted to take is in New York with Jane. She used it when she moved back to the city back in whenever that was, June. So I had to use this, which was okay because I had a whole bunch of stuff to take out there for the Keystone chapter. I had people's T-shirts. I know you know about that because I did a few episodes on the Keystone chapter T-shirts. So I took those out, and it was good to get rid of 6 more shirts, so that was good. And I took some things out for our basket. The Keystone chapter did a basket for the auction. The auction, usually the auction was, to me, the greatest thing at the convention. Denise did an auction. Denise Brown is the president of the Greater Philly chapter, and I just love this auction. She kind of describes the thing, and she's walking around talking about it, getting bids and so forth. Well, I don't know if it was because of COVID or whatnot. They did a silent auction this year, and so you had to do the bidding online. And the cool thing was you could bid before the convention started. So hoping that would make the bids higher. People started bidding early and often, and I don't know how it compares to a typical year. I don't know what they normally take in, but it seemed to do pretty well. I think they raised over $1,100 or $1,200 from it. And each chapter donated a basket of stuff, and some of the divisions did that, and so it was good, but it just wasn't as good as the regular auction that Denise runs. Now, the cool thing about, and I'm going a little bit out of order how it goes with the convention, but Friday night they did a talent show. The students division did a talent show, and it wasn't just students. Anybody could, I could have done it. I don't know why they would have allowed me to, but I could have. But as I'm sitting there listening to, and if you've watched Believe You Can, Simon was in this as well as he won some money in Believe You Can. Angelina, who was in Believe You Can and made it to the second round, to the final round, but didn't win any money. I mean, she sounded incredible. Esther was in it. She was supposed to be in Believe You Can, but she was sick, so she couldn't. And again, everybody just said it was so nice to hear everybody live as opposed to, from some sort of setup at their house where the audio's not great or the Wi-Fi is a little questionable. It was just so nice. And I said to Lisa as we were, watching these folks do this, how awesome it was to have it in a place live. And, we started talking about Believe You Can and how we'd like to, we were thinking we had to do it in a place with a stage, like some sort of theater or something, or auditorium. And, we were in a ballroom of a hotel, the Crown Plaza in Harrisburg. And I'll mention that in a minute. I'll go back to that. But it was so awesome. So every so often, they would talk about the auction. Stacy and Simon went back and forth. And this talent show was not for any kind of money. It was just to play. I think Simon did 3 or 4 songs. Angelina did 4 or 5 songs, and Esther did a couple, and a couple others did more than one, and some people just did one. But it was just awesome to do it, to hear it live. And again, every so often, they would say, okay, the so and so chapter's basket is up to X number of dollars. Let's recap what's in it, and why don't you go and place a bid? So that was very cool. But again, not as fun as the typical auction at the convention. So, getting back to the train, and I'm not sure how I got off on that tangent. Getting back to the train, we all get on, and I was fortunate to keep my, talking about the luggage and carrying the stuff out there, I kept my bag with me. Some people, they put it on a cart, and so they were, of course, worried when we were getting on the train and their luggage was, they weren't sure where their luggage was. It's not like you can glance over and say, oh, yeah, it's right over there on that cart. And, nobody can see where it is. So when we got to Harrisburg, Stacy couldn't find her bags. And so she wasn't sure, did they make it onto the train? And they did. And evidently when we got off the train, she didn't know where they were, and somebody from the station, from the Harrisburg station, went and grabbed them for her. And he was awesome. That's one thing that I just can't get over, how friendly and helpful all of the folks that work at Amtrak are to us. There's 3 or 4 people at Harrisburg that 2 of them I recognized from the last time the convention was out there in 2019, just so helpful. Especially when we were going back. And again, there's, most of us took one of 2 trains going home. And so there were a lot of folks on both trains that I was on that were blind. I mean, as we were sitting there watching people get on, Lisa saying, oh, there's so-and-so from there, and there's so-and-so, and there's so-and-so. And, so a lot of people, both coming and going, were on the train. So it was kind of funny. We get out there, we get to the hotel, and everybody's checking in but me because my room wasn't ready. Now, when I made the reservation, they asked me, do you want 2 queen size beds or a king size? I said, it's just one person. It doesn't matter. If you have, if availability for 1 king is fine, that's, I could do that. And that's what I had, but it wasn't ready. So everybody's checking in. I left my luggage with the, I don't know what you would call him, concierge, guy behind a desk, whatever. I don't know what his title was. I left it with him and I got it back. He gave me a ticket for it, and then I got it back later. And then went and jumped right into the sessions because the tech day had started. That was right at, I guess it started before we got there. I think it started at 1, and we got to the hotel about 1:15 or so. And, I got there just in time. Denise does a session on accessible apps and how they are with voiceover and stuff like that, and in various categories, shopping or traveling and things like that. So that was some good stuff. In fact, after she was done, I asked her if she would want to do something similar to that on White Canes Connect, which is the other podcast that I do. And I do that one with Lisa, and it's presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. So she said she would. So, we're going to have her on. And it'll probably be something that's ongoing where she will come on maybe once a month and just talk about some apps or things like that. So then there were some other presenters for technology and things like that, which, also good stuff to know and to learn about. And that was basically the only program for Thursday, and that ran for I guess for about 4 hours. Then there was a few hour break, and then there was a I don't want to call it. It was like they had a buffet of food, and they did program for it because it was November 11th. We did a salute to vets, and there were some folks from the National Association of Blind Veterans there, and so a few people spoke. And I could have actually anybody that was a vet or had a family member that was a vet could have had basically honored them that day. And I thought about doing it for my dad, and I just thought, that is not something that he ever really liked. He was proud to have served, but he didn't need the recognition. It didn't matter that he spent 13 months in a German POW camp. And when I say a German POW camp, it was multiples because they were, constantly moving them around. It was nice to hear about the folks who were actual veterans there, and say thank you to them. But the folks that were there to, honor their, in most cases, deceased loved one who served, that was nice. But, again, my dad I don't think wouldn't have wanted that. It's just how he was. When people asked him to speak in front of a group, to talk about it, he would. But if somebody called him to interview him for a book or something else, then I'm good. He didn't want to do it. I don't know why. Because he had great stories, and everybody loved his stories. Because you fly 24 missions and then get shot down and have to jump out of a plane that's on fire. It's a good story. People like it. It could be a movie. Landed in a tree when he parachuted down. Town folk from whatever town they ended up in, came at them with pitchforks and everything else because, they just dropped bombs on their place. So the fact that they survived that, jumping out of a burning plane and survived the townspeople, and so forth. So, and one last thing about my dad and jumping out of the plane, he had to carry one of his crewmates, because he had sprained or broken his ankle when he landed. I guess he didn't stick the landing. I mean, my dad technically didn't either, landing in the tree, but I guess my dad was more fortunate. So he had to carry him, as he said, all across Germany. Maybe it was to the next town, who knows? But, it was, he did have to carry this guy. And, my dad wasn't a big guy, so... it's kind of funny to hear that. And so that was the first day of events. And, it was good. It was very nice. And, I didn't eat anything from the buffet because, we had gone and had, there's a Mexican place, on the same block around the corner. And, so we had gone there and had a late lunch. And, I just didn't want anything. So, some folks were eating and evidently it was pretty good, but I didn't have any. So the stuff that goes on Friday, besides, of course, the talent show and the auction that was Friday night, are basically different division meetings. There's guide dog users group that meets and they learn about different things. Students had a very long meeting, and Lisa had gone to that. We kind of split up because, we didn't know what we wanted to cover for, upcoming podcasts and what we wanted to hear about. Stacy led a discussion about, for her blind parents group, and just the nonsense that goes on with parents who are blind and issues that they face. Some people won't let them go home with their kids when they have a baby. They say, well, you're blind, you can't care for that kid. Even to this day, it still happens. It's just unreal. So we sat in a little bit for that. Lisa went to the students. I went to the blind merchants, which I was very excited about. In fact, I joined the Pennsylvania Association of Blind Merchants, and I look forward to that because as I've mentioned here multiple times, I like business. I like hearing about business. I like talking about business, and that's what they did. We had our first meeting last night since I joined, and it was nice. It was I like it, and I'm excited for it. Liz was not too thrilled with the meeting time at 6 p.m. right around dinner time. We have a very short window of eating dinner, talking, and watching a little TV. And Liz takes Ziggy for a walk. Since it's dark out now, when she does, I don't go, as I've mentioned before, which makes me a little sad because I like to go for the walks too. But as I've mentioned before, it just kills me, my hands to sweep the whole way with my cane. So I don't go. When we go and it's light out, Liz, alerts me to any issues with the sidewalk or, things like that. And the only time I really use my cane when I go with them is, when I get to a curb or step off a curb and stuff like that. So, basically, when Liz gets home, there's only a few hours of, where we can talk and, and we're not doing anything. Sometimes we talk while she's making dinner, and stuff like that. But so she's not a big fan of the weekday early evening meetings. If it were at 9 o'clock, it'd be fine because by then she's just about asleep. So so that was last night, and again, it was good. I'm looking forward to being part of that. And Saturday at the convention is a big day. Saturday is what's called general sessions. And there's a whole bunch of different speakers that are lined up that talk about either something that has gone on with them. And for example, Angelina, who is 16, was talking about her school and how things are with, her, I think it's called IEP, how things are with that, and some things that she gets help with that. They had someone from the Accessible Pharmacy, which is pharmacy that will send you your meds, whether it's already divided, like like we used to do for my mom. So you have when you take the right medicine at the specific time, some that has Braille on it, large print, whatever. So he was there to speak. And then there was a great presentation from these two people that do this other podcast called White Canes Connect. I am not lying, but they were outstanding. And it was fun. And I'll tell you, they have a podium set up, of course, where you speak behind. And since there's two of us, they have it kind of in between like two tables. So there's really only room for one person in there, which was fine by me. So Lisa took that one. And to my excitement, I got the mic that was wireless. So, as I mentioned before, I wander around a lot. And when we were recording an episode of White Canes Connect with Lynn Heitz, who's the president of the NFB of PA, and Sean Calloway, who's the president of the NFB of DC, after we got done, Lisa, Lynn, and I were talking, and Lynn says to me, I see something moving on my screen. What's going on over there at your house, Dave? And I said, oh, that's me. I'm walking back and forth. I'm tethered to this. I still have not broken in the new equipment, so I'm still tethered to my computer monitor. It's a 6 or 8 foot cord, maybe it's longer. So I basically walk from one end of my desk a little past to the other end while we're recording that. I'm not doing that now. I'm sitting in a seat now, bouncing around a little bit, but I'm sitting. So it was great. So I had this wireless mic. I'm just wandering around behind all the people that are sitting at this main table. The next day, and I told Lynn that day, I said, and by the way, Lynn, as I'm talking about, different show ideas that we have, Lynn has a guide dog named Danny, and I keep walking past her, and I'm thinking, and the whole convention, I'm seeing people who are presenting or talking about different things, and I'm thinking, man, that would be great for an episode of White Canes Connect. And every time I walked past Danny, I thought, if we can only get him on the show. And I thought that would be kind of interesting as well. But I told Lynn that I was wandering around. The next day, we're sitting at the train station, and I'm talking with Jim Antonacci, and he said to me, do you have ADD? And I said, well, I've never been diagnosed, but who knows? Maybe, because I don't, usually sit still. And it was kind of funny that, that he mentioned that. So we did a presentation, and we kind of treated it like an episode of White Canes Connect. I started it with the, hey there, PA Federationists, and that's how I usually open each episode and go from there. And, we went back and forth a little bit, and we talked about, what we've done on the show, what we want to do on the show, asked if folks have any ideas or, know of people who would be good to feature on the show. And it was a lot of fun. And, it's funny how different, I remember back as a kid when you had to get up and speak, even in front of your class, when you had to do a book report or whatever. And, you would get nervous. I was so excited to do that. And, it's not like there were a lot of people there. I don't know, 180 to 100 maybe. I don't know. It was just fun. It was, it's it was in a double ballroom, ballroom A and B. It's just a lot of fun. And I'd love to do that more. I don't know how much longer I could go without being able to read notes or anything like that, but I think it'd be fun to try and do, some sort of, public speaking and stuff like that. I just like doing it. It's just like I like doing the podcast and the other podcast as well. And these are very different things. The other one is back and forth with Lisa and I, and then we have guests all the time and we go back and forth with them. And, this is basically me talking like it's a radio show. Sometimes I have guests, and I found out, speaking of that, I talked to, I was going, I don't want to say talking because we were communicating because it was via Facebook Messenger. I was talking to Max Ivy, and he said, maybe you could have Emily. I believe the pronunciation of her last name is Trepanier. She's a blind snowboarder, which I may have mentioned a week or two ago, and I just find that horrifying and amazing because I know how I feel every day, and just going down and feeling all the bumps of the hill as you're going down on a snowboard, and then basically just taking direction from somebody. I've mentioned before how horrible I am with left and right. And that came out, I was guiding Stacy somewhere, and I said, yeah, go to your left. I'm like, I'm sorry, I meant you're right. And yeah, it's terrible. 50, almost 57 years old, I still don't know my right from my left. So I did mention to Max that I would love to have her on. So in a few weeks, I'll have Emily on, and we'll talk about snowboarding and how and again, in my eyes, she's a kid. She's I think in her 20s, so she's my kid's age, and so look for that coming up in a few weeks after Thanksgiving. Sometime early December, I think she'll be on, but we haven't set a date to record, but it will be fun and very interesting to hear from her because she's trying out and wants to be in the Paralympics. She's Canadian, so she would be on the Canadian club, Canadian side. And I'm assuming there's American blind snowboarders. I don't know, but I guess I can ask her that. Maybe she doesn't know either. And I guess the Paralympics, you just have to have a disability, not necessarily blindness or, minus a limb or whatever, to participate. So, but we'll ask Emily all the stuff that you have to do to get involved. And, I guess it might be different between the two different countries, but we'll see. So look for that in a few weeks. So General Sessions was great. And then, the last evening of the convention, so you finish General Sessions, then there's a couple of hours, and then there's a banquet. And the first year for the banquet, I didn't realize you're supposed to dress up. It's supposed to look nice. Now, I had a suit because I presented in a suit. But even if I didn't present, I still would have had a suit because the first year I was basically wearing jeans and a flannel shirt with a turtleneck underneath. And I felt kind of silly. And there were a few folks, even this year, I noticed one guy was wearing shorts. Whatever. I guess it doesn't really matter too much. I mean, the bottom line was I didn't get anything on my suit, and that was the best part of it. But during the banquet, there are after the meal, there's a few presentations, and there's each chapter gives a donation to the state affiliate. Keystone chapter gave quite a large amount of money. I don't know if it was the most because nobody announced the totals. Then some other folks gave smaller amounts, and it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun, and it ended pretty early. I guess 9:30, 10 o'clock ish. I don't quite know. But then we all ended up in the bar. And I'll get to the bar in a second because I'll just finish up what the actual things at the convention were. Sunday morning is usually a business meeting, and you hear from each chapter and what they're doing. And, it's always interesting to hear because then you learn from the other chapters what works maybe for a fundraiser and what doesn't. And there's some other presentations and things like that. And then they call it a convention, and everybody heads out and goes on their way. And I really enjoyed the entire convention, but I think the best parts of it were Friday night and Saturday night. Friday night after the talent show, and then Saturday night after the banquet. Everybody ended up in the hotel bar. And I don't want to say everybody because, again, there were 80 to 100 people there. So the bar wasn't that big. So Friday night, it was basically a group of us, and I want to say maybe there was like 10 or 12, most folks sitting around, some people standing. I was, of course, standing. And the highlight for Friday night for me was Angelina. Lynn, again, was there. And again, she's the NFB of Pennsylvania president. And, she said there was a problem with the last song Angelina was doing at the talent show. They had the wrong backing music. It was basically the music without the lyrics, but then it was almost like not a medley, but it then went into a different thing, a part of the song where there was somebody else singing, and I think it was the original song, but whatever. So Lynn had asked Angelina, please, could you just do that song? I really like that song. Could you do that song? And it was You're So Vain. And so she did it in the bar, of course, without a microphone or anything, but the acoustics in there made her sound, and she sounded great during the talent show, made her sound even that much better. It was just incredible. And she sounded so good. And in fact, at one point, the bartender walked past me and said, I had to do a double take. I thought somebody was just playing music really loud. I didn't realize it was somebody actually singing. It was that good. It was incredible. And that was the high for me. That was the highlight. We were again standing around talking and whatnot. And, because most folks were sitting and I was standing, I wasn't really, I talked to, Emily's husband. His name is Ryan, and I talked to him. They're big Penguins fans. They're from Pittsburgh, and so we were talking about hockey and stuff like that. And I didn't, little chit chats with some other folks there, but that was about it. And I don't drink when I go to the bar. I was drinking regular iced tea, which the bartender didn't charge me for, which I guess because I was the designated driver. So that was Friday night. Saturday night, more people went because I guess they found out, how great it was. And so it was packed. And there were a lot more folks from a lot of the chapters. The night before, the folks we were sitting around with, it was primarily folks from the eastern part of the state other than Lynn and Emily and Angelina. I'm sorry, Emily and Angelina and Matt, and I guess at one point Jason from Harrisburg had come over that night, but Saturday night it was just everybody was there. It just seemed, and I met some folks from the Greater Lehigh Valley chapter and talked to some people there, and I talked to some other folks from out west. It was awesome. And, and there were, it just seemed like there was a lot more drinking at the bar on Saturday night than Friday night. A lot of people on Friday night, the folks who I was there with, had already been drinking at the Cash Bar during the talent show. And were already, pretty well lubricated by the time we got to the bar. So there wasn't as much, it didn't seem to me at least, it wasn't as much drinking. So Saturday night, it was just a lot of fun. And, there were some Keystone folks there and Greater Philly. And so I got to talk to Eugenio because I talked to him a little bit on Friday, but I didn't see him too much. I think he came in on Friday. So I got to talk to him. He's in Greater Philly, and we talked for a little bit, and it was just a lot of fun. And Harriet, who showed up, Harriet also was not drinking, although she made people think she was. And she had a glass of water with ice and like 5 maraschino cherries in it, it was just a lot of fun. And talking to Jim at that night, Jim was talking about different things that we could do as far as if we did YouTube, to basically teach sighted folks, what blind folks are and aren't, and that we're capable, and he really had some good ideas, and and when I asked him more, he said, well, I don't know, ask me when I'm not drinking and drunk. And so he did have some good ideas. It was funny to hear, he's late 60s, early 70s, not quite sure, but with him talking about YouTube and stuff, it's not something you would typically hear someone that age talk about. So that was interesting to talk to him. It was just a lot of fun, and that's where a lot more ideas get bounce back and forth, because you're sitting there, it's informal, you can say some wacky stuff, and because you're drinking, nobody pays attention. And again, just drinking iced tea, nothing crazy for me. It was just fun to watch and listen and be there for, and to talk with everybody. And again, we don't get to see a lot of these folks, except for this time, when you go to the convention. So it was nice to hang out with those folks. And again, a lot of good things went on there, and it seems like nobody got hurt and everybody made it back home. So our train coming home, however, and again, it was another one of those trains, it was basically the blind car, that we were in. And the train actually broke down on the way home, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So I don't know how long we were stopped. 20 minutes? I am not sure. But we were supposed to get home at 3. I didn't get home until, I don't think we got off the train until 3:20, 3:30, something like that. So poor Liz had left to pick me up at, she left the house at like 20 minutes till 3. So she was kind of just hanging out there for a bit. But it was just, it was just a lot of fun. The whole thing was, always well worth going. And, you learn a lot, and, again, and you do have a lot of fun, and, looking forward to next year. Now, next year it's in Pittsburgh, and for whatever reason, there's not an easy way to go from the east end of the state to the west end. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get there next year, because Amtrak, on 2 of their trains to Pittsburgh, it's somewhere around 6 hours, a little more than 6 hours. But they only run like twice a day, and their times are not great. I don't remember what they were, because I had looked not too long ago. And same thing coming home. They have a couple trains that, are the shorter, quote unquote, times where it's only about 6 hours, but, could take like 10 or 11 hours. And I'm thinking, you hear about trains like that, like, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Peacemaker, where the one train has all sorts of nuclear weapons and they switch it onto a commuter rail line. And, of course there's, detonation and so forth and so on. It reminds me of that it takes you that long because it's, traveling overnight. And so I don't know I don't know if I'll take the train or fly, or maybe even by then, somebody will be driving and I'll be able to catch a ride with someone. Hotel was nice that we stayed at. It was at the Crown Plaza. The rooms were a little small. There wasn't a lot of room, for example, between the bed and the desk. And I constantly was, you kind of had to walk through sideways from where the chair was for the desk because it just wasn't that wide. And a couple of people had mentioned that the rooms were a little tight. And again, it was just me in there, so it didn't really matter. But I'm always paranoid walking around in bare feet, so when I got out of bed to go get in the shower, I was extra careful because I didn't want to smash my toes into that desk chair because that would have really started my day off badly. And one thing that I can say about starting off badly, every morning I woke up and I looked forward. I just wanted a nice big cup of tea. When I'm home, I have 24 ounces of hot tea in the morning with breakfast. That's all I was looking for. There's a Starbucks in the lobby. And when I say there's a Starbucks, it's one of those licensed things. It's open like 4 or 5 hours a day from like 7 to 12 or something like that. It was awful. It was just awful. They had the same guy was there every day. It was just one guy. And the first day, Friday morning, I walked up and, he took my order and he said, "What can I get for you?" I said, hot black tea. And he's like, "What?" I said, brewed black tea. And he didn't understand it. And finally, we're going back and forth and back and forth. And I take my mask away. Sorry, I hit the mic. I take my mask away and I say, "Brewed black tea, a couple of tea bags, water, cup." That's all. That's all I needed. So the next thing I do, I hear this. It sounded like the thing that they use when they're frothing milk. And I'm thinking, that can't be mine, right? And I'm thinking, and then he brings it over and he tells me $4.87. I said, "For brewed tea?" So then he changes it to, I don't remember, $4 and I want to say 13 cents or something like that. I don't remember. There was I had a lot of change. So I kind of think it was that amount. And then I take a sip and I basically think he took like the iced tea concentrate and just warmed it up and gave it to me in a cup. And it was awful. I drank maybe a third of it and it was awful. I threw it out. Just to preface everything, I woke up Friday morning and I felt horrible. My whole body hurt. I couldn't, just to stand or walk or touch or move or grab or anything, everything just hurt. I just felt horrible. And so that didn't help that when I just wanted a hot tea and I didn't get it. So I thought, okay, here we go again. It's Saturday morning. I'm ready to go down and get my drink. And, after Friday night, when everybody was leaving the bar, Lisa said, "Do you want to meet in the lobby?" And I said, "Yeah, that's good. We can meet at the Starbucks." I said, "I wonder what I'll get." So this time when it was my time to order, and let me tell you, I was third in line when I got there. Lisa had already been there because I had to meet somebody on the next level up, on the mezzanine level, to give them their T-shirt. And I waited there for a while. So I got down to the lobby, I don't know, somewhere between 8:20 and 8:25. I said hi to Lisa, who was talking to someone, and then I got into the line. And again, I was the third person or people in line. There was a group of 2 or 3 people at the counter ordering. And then and I believe those people were part of the convention. Then there was a couple of girls in front of me that was part of a wedding party. And then there was me. And again, I looked at my clock, and when I say clock, my phone, and when I say looked, I listened, at 8:25. And I'm standing there and I'm waiting, and it just seemed like the people who were from the convention, who were other convention goers, were either getting calls from people and saying, "Hey, get me this," or other people were walking over and saying, "Hey, get me this." And it just took forever. So they get done finally, and then the two girls in front of me go. But in the meantime, another girl has come over, and she's going to get something. And then while they're ordering, another girl comes over. So they take a while. And, the convention stuff was supposed to start at 8:30, and I figured, well, I'm going to miss some of it because I'm standing here in this line, and I'm not leaving unless I get my tea. And then I'm starting to think, this is really going to suck that I'm wasting all this time if it's not tea or it's like I got the day before. Now, I was fortunate. When I got up there after, at some point I was more than 20 minutes in line, and Lisa texted me, and I hadn't even ordered yet. She's like, "You're on your way up, right?" And I said, "I haven't even ordered yet." And she couldn't believe it. So finally, the group in front of me gets done with their however many drinks and whatever else they got, the scones and muffins and whatnot. It's my turn. And I bet you mine took less than a minute. I walked up there. I said to the guy, I took my mask down from my face. I said, "Brewed English breakfast tea. Large." Because they don't even go, it's been a while since I've been to a Starbucks to begin with. I don't know if they've gone away. I mean, they were called venti. I mean, I don't know if that's still the case, but that's what I would have called it. I don't know if I said venti, that would have thrown this guy for a loop because he was just awful, and he's talking to the girls in front of me and flirting with them. And, hey, pal, there's a line, I wasn't the last one in the line. So, I reiterated again on Saturday, brewed English breakfast tea, 2 tea bags, thinking it's the big size tea bags, because when you get it at Starbucks, they're larger size, because again, a 20-ounce cup, you don't put 1 little tiny or 2 little tiny tea bags in there. And what do you know? He got it right. So, I grabbed on the way into the ballroom where all the sessions were being held. I grabbed a cup for water to put my tea bags in because I needed to let them steep. And I, looked around, and Lisa told me she was up front. So I looked for her and, sat down, and she's like, "Is the tea right?" I said, "You're not going to believe it, but it is." I mean, and it was as close to perfect as that guy is ever going to get, I'm sure. I mean, he was just awful. He was slow. He didn't know what anything was. People are asking him for things. He had no idea what they were. So it was just brutal that this guy was even working this thing. And again, the way things are now with, at least he was willing to show up for his job. And that's all it takes now. That's all you need to do. You just need to be alive and show up. Doesn't matter that you suck. You just have to show up and you're good to go. Get a paycheck. And I don't know what Starbucks pays, but I'm guessing, $12, $15 an hour, maybe in Harrisburg a little bit less. I don't know. But he was horrible. But he showed up. So, so to find, I was in search of, I just couldn't believe that there wasn't a Starbucks close by out of the hotel that I could have run to get, because I would have loved to have had an iced tea at the end of the day, each day too, but I took lemons with me and everything, but never used them. Brought them home and used them that day. So that was the convention trip. And again, it was just a lot of fun. You learned a lot. You get to see folks and hang out with folks that you don't get to do too often. And, it's just a nice thing. And there were a lot of first time, convention folks there. I want to say there was 22. So, you're talking about maybe a quarter of the folks who were there were first timers. So that part was good. So like I said, next year in Pittsburgh, not sure how I'll get there. Guessing either driving or taking a plane, because I don't know that I want to sit on Amtrak for that long, although you take a plane and while the flight might not be long, you got to get there a little early or a lot early. And so we'll see, but that's next year. And in the meantime, other NFB events that I'm hoping to go to, assuming, and that's another thing, folks weren't wearing masks a lot of the time. I finally stopped wearing it a lot of the time because it was just, I'm putting it on, taking it off. We're eating, I'm taking it off and leaving it in my pocket, done eating. I might have had stuff on my face, didn't want to put it back on. I only took one. So fingers are crossed. We're 4 days after I've been home. that there's no COVID outbreak and that wasn't a super spreader among the Pennsylvania blind community. So we'll see. But looking forward to the NFB National Convention next summer is in New Orleans. Hopefully that happens. And in the meantime, in January or February is a thing called Washington Seminar, it's always also fun and interesting and informative, where we get to go to Washington and we basically lobby, the different folks in Congress about what, our agenda is. And each year they come out with, basically 3 items that they want to push through. And it's very cool. Again, you go and meet with different reps from around the state of Pennsylvania, usually in groups of like 3. We go in and talk to them about the different items on the agenda, and hey, would you be interested in co-sponsoring this bill, and so forth and so on. And then of course at night there's more stuff at at bars and going out to dinner, and and I'm looking forward to that because I'd like to go back to oohs and ahs. And I was talking to Eugenio about that. He wasn't sure if they were still, if they survived the pandemic. So hopefully they did, because I'm ready for some mac and cheese from there, because it was awesome. And it was a lot of fun going there with Eugenio and Denise and some other folks back in, I guess we went in 2020. It was before the lockdown. So just 2 years ago. So looking forward to those and other NFB events, on the local level, Keystone Chapter stuff. So again, I do appreciate you listening to me ramble on about the state convention in Harrisburg. And as always, if you have questions or comments or show ideas, 646-926-6350. You have up to 3 minutes to leave any questions, comments, or ideas. And please leave your name and town. And if you're doing that, just by recording that message, you're giving me permission to use it on an upcoming episode. So again, say whatever you want. I would appreciate that. You can also reach out via email, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, show notes will be available over at iCantCU.com. This episode is 154, so it's iCantCU.com/154. Remember, iCantCU sounds like a whole sentence, but it's only 7 letters long. iCantCU.com/154. Again, thanks for listening. I do appreciate it. I hope you're well and continue to stay safe. And I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the iCantCU podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.